This is going to be a fun one. Another chapter in the Cenk Uygur versus Joe Rogan beef, or at least the Cenk Uygur trying to make there be a beef. Seemingly, Joe Rogan isn't really quite fully reciprocating, but we do have a recent development here because he finally did address Cenk in an interview. Not sure what the interview was, can't find the clip itself, but apparently Joe Rogan called Cenk silly. So Cenk took to Twitter, says, apparently Joe Rogan called me silly in an interview. Hilarious. Hey, meathead, you're best friends with a certifiable lunatic named Alex Jones. Hard to have any credibility on intelligence after that. Also, how is the deworming medicine going for you, genius? So there we go. Cenk Uygur, of course, continues to maul on Twitter and try to provoke some sort of like a beef or whatever with Joe Rogan. We reported on the story from a month or so ago where Cenk was literally trying to fight Joe Rogan, saying like, I would beat the fuck out of you. I've been in so many fights and all this craziness. So, obviously, don't agree with Joe Rogan on much these days. I think he has turned into basically just a boomer style conservative chud. But that being said, it's also pretty pathetic to watch Cenk Uygur so desperately try to, get his attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking hilarious, actually, and look, the fact that he called him silly and this dude has got such a fragile ego that's fucking got to him. Like, how many people that Joe Rogan probably really likes and he's been like, oh, that guy's silly. Like, Abby Martin goes on Joe Rogan's podcast pretty regularly. And I remember one time I was upset for her because I felt like she was being condescended, but he was like, oh, you're such a crazy lefty. I love you, man. You're a crazy lefty. And I'm like, do not condescend this woman. But, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he didn't mean any like massive offense by it if we're being charitable. Joe Rogan's a really affable guy. That's why he's popular. You know what I mean? It's not like he's out here trying to start beefs and start wars with people, especially a guy like Cenk Uygur, who he just seems like he doesn't want anything to do with, right? And Cenk Uygur's so fucking humiliated by that because Joe Rogan would rather hang out with Alex fucking Jones than spend any time with Cenk Uygur, and he doesn't want to do any personal reflection onto what that fucking says about his character. It's like, yes, Alex Jones is being sued by like 13 different motherfuckers, and they just won about defamation and all of his horrible Sandy Hook shit. And yes, he spread all kinds of misinformation and lizards aren't real and all that shit. Joe Rogan would still rather kick it with that guy than you. And maybe you should do a little bit of soul searching as to why you're so fucking unlikable, as to why that might be, instead of continuing to maul on Twitter, dig up dewormer jokes, which had their moment, but it's past. And it just makes you look super cringy. And like you're dog whistling in defense of CNN with their fucking horrible ass horse dewormer efforts against Joe Rogan, which were admittedly cringy, right? Like Gavin and I don't care if you make like memes of Joe Rogan evolving into a horse. We thought those were funny as shit. But it's also another thing to be a news network that says somebody injected horse paste when they actually injected a human version of ivermectin, right? Like everybody understands comedy. Like there's a line that you can't be up there telling jokes on CNN, like you compromise that credibility that you already lost like 2 decades ago. But anyway, this is just a fucking hilarious, like, oh, I'm just as big of a meathead moment from Cenk. Like, I'll fucking fight you square up, homie. Like, it's so desperate and fucking just another sign of their complete, like, just collapse from relevancy, to be honest, Yeah,
100%. And it looks like Cenk is definitely trying to get trending again, which he succeeded. That's usually what this is all about. And he is out here not only going after Joe Rogan, but also Bill Maher. He says all the fake tough guys of media like Bill Maher and Joe Rogan pretend that it's so brave to hit the least powerful people in the country, the trans community, Muslims, and now expanded to almost all minorities. That takes no courage at all. Try punching up like you used to. Cowards. So I'm not exactly sure what specifically he's referring to. I don't know if Bill Maher recently said some like cringy transphobic shit or whatever. But I do have to admit that Cenk is correct on the substance here. It is pretty gross seeing the likes of Joe Rogan specifically. And it doesn't surprise me if Bill Maher jumped on that train too, like shitting on the trans community and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But it's kind of like a weird thing to, without any I think this is just like his go-to in the pocket. Like I've definitely seen Joe Rogan interview some crazy Islamophobes and like nod along and be like, yeah, bro, yeah, Islams, they won't stop until they convert everybody. That's a real disease, man. Like that kind of rhetoric was really popular on Joe Rogan's podcast at one time. And so that's true, and I would not dispute that, right? But it's and again, he said some shit about the trans community that I don't really agree with at all. And obviously, Gavin and I stand in firm solidarity with the trans community 100%. So again, yeah, those 2 points are fair, but it just is a remarkable fucking self-immolation to just start tweeting at all of these guys like you're the only real tough guy in media left when. Like, it's not like he's a stalwart of the fucking trans community. It's not like I mean, maybe he does his best, but it's not like he's been very successful. I don't know how many fucking members of the trans community are like fucking holding Cenk Uygur up as if he's their bastion for what's the fuck is right or wrong, or if how much time he devotes the Young Turks towards trans liberation and all that kind of stuff as an actual news organization. Joe Rogan's just a literal interviewer podcast host. So I don't know. I just think it's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely a shameless attempt to get attention and to trend on Twitter. That's what most of Cenk Uygur's Twitter content seems to be about, just trying to provoke people into talking about him, which good job. You succeeded. Here we are talking about you. Anyway, he's definitely going on the warpath here. He says, for right wingers, I get why you fanboy over Joe Rogan. He now supports all of your wacky ideas. Again, not exactly wrong. Joe Rogan has become pretty fucking cringy lately. For everyone else, he was just on the podcast with Tim Pool and Alex Jones, where they talked about how poor Rittenhouse was the victim. Wake up, this guy is a normal right-wing asshat here. So yeah, I mean, again, definitely Cenk just trying to get attention, just trying to start beef with Joe Rogan, who's of course a much bigger name and personality and much more relevant personality than Cenk at this point. But again, you're not exactly wrong on the substance there. That was basically just a cringy conservative boomer fest over on the Tim Pool cast the other night. The clips that we watched were definitely fairly cringe, I would say. But yeah, he's going after Bill Maher again here too. Now, Bill Maher pretending to be brave again by supporting right-wing critical race theory is not taught in schools. He's helping asshole racist right-wingers pretend it is. Everything he said on CNN was a lie. No one is separated into oppressors and oppressed in the schools. So yeah, Cenk is really just getting in here fighting the culture war with his fellow commentators here, which is ironic because he was recently tweeting about how like, oh, can't we, put aside the culture war for a little bit and just, come together where we agree, even with people on the right wing, for example, which a lot of people were making fun of him for saying, because he's criticized people for essentially saying that same position in other words. But so yeah, it is kind of funny to see him out here fighting the culture war, going to war with all of these other commentators. Definitely a desperate bid for attention, like you said, Zach.
Yeah, and to be fair, right, that was a cringy ass fucking panel, and I do think that Joe Rogan, despite what he says about oh, I support Medicare for all, like and I would have voted for Bernie Sanders, I think that if push comes to shove, that dude's politics definitely make him at least like a populist fucking conservative, in any capacity. And I've listened to a shit ton of Joe Rogan. I don't come at this as an uninformed person. I used to deliver pizza for a living right around that 2015 time when that was like basically every fucking late night pizza delivery guy was into Joe Rogan, despite his faults. But yeah, it's just really strange. And I guess that it makes sense. There was that clip that was going around of Bill Maher recently doing an interview. Fuck, I forget where. I think it was on CNN or something. That's probably what he's reacting to. But either way, I don't know. Interesting molding from Cenk Uygur, somebody who desperately wants to be taken seriously, but then does shit like this and then just can't be the way he wants to. You know what I mean? And it's fucking hilarious too, because like 6 months ago, I feel like he would have been groveling to go on Joe Rogan's show, like ball butthurt that he doesn't get invited on anymore. Like maybe I'm wrong about that, but it does seem to be like that's the cycle. But I fucking can't believe that Joe Rogan actually put this out. This is fucking hilarious.
God, yeah, it's just a cringe fest in general, this entire story. Most of the personalities involved are pretty goddamn cringy, in my opinion. If you ask me, Bill Maher, Cenk, Joe Rogan, not exactly the people I look to for enlightenment, but it definitely a funny story to talk about. And I can't deny that I'm enjoying the beef going down between Cenk and Joe Rogan, even though, again, it seems like it's mostly a one-sided beef with Cenk Uygur just desperately clamoring for attention and to get a response out of Joe Rogan, which, again, he finally did here, but it was just in the form of being called silly. So, not a serious response, not a serious engagement with the ideas, but just basically being tossed aside as someone who's silly and not worth engaging with, which Joe Rogan has already made clear, hence why Cenk Uygur has never been invited back on the Joe Rogan Experience since that very initial appearance. I don't even know if you guys remember that, but Cenk Uygur did actually go on the Joe Rogan Experience at one point, a long
With
time
Anna, I
ago.
think.
Was it? Yeah, I'm trying to find it myself too. I'm not sure if it's still up on YouTube, but there was a point where Joe Rogan.
Sorry, I think Anna Kasparian may have been on there separately, but episode 416 definitely had Anna Kasparian on it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I found a clip of it. We can show you guys just because it's been so goddamn long. It seems like so much has changed since these days. But yeah, here's Cenk Uygur on Joe Rogan, a clip of it.
Most guys actually kind of scare me, but
They scare me too.
Yeah. He said, but this is NBC. We're insiders. And I was just in Washington. They're not happy with your tone. And we're the establishment here, and you got to start acting like it.
Whoa.
Isn't that amazing?
And you're an insider. So I have a new package for you.
Right.
And this package is, shares and this. And
See, Joe, you nailed it. You nailed it because that's what came next.
No.
Okay.
Damn, seems like they're so friendly, so buddy. What happened?
Joe stopped platforming Cenk Uygur and stopped calling him back. What the fuck happened to Dave Rubin? Dave Rubin used to say all kinds of nice shit about Joe Rogan, right? Well, okay. We all know what happened there. He was so unserious that even Joe Rogan couldn't take Dave Rubin serious. That's a low bar. The man just interviewed Ben Shapiro for like the 40th fucking time.
Yeah, and that's actually a great comparison because Dave Rubin is also someone that just absolutely mauls over the fact that he's never been reinvited on the Joe Rogan Experience since that one episode where he was basically totally revealed as a hack who didn't know what the hell he was talking about and was just regurgitating anti-regulation libertarian talking points. Joe Rogan totally showed his ass on that podcast, if you guys remember, with some very basic pushback and revealed Dave Rubin to be a totally vacuous, moronic commentator that doesn't really believe what he says, is always just trying to grift and find a lane, make some more money, stay relevant, etc. Anyway, after that, Dave Rubin got super salty about Joe Rogan's refusal to have him back on, and was trying to make all these like swipes at him and subtweets, and he was like, Joe Rogan shouldn't move to Texas. He's a Bernie Sanders guy. You're gonna bring all your Bernie Sanders ideas and socialism to Texas, and like all this horse shit, as if Joe Rogan is in any way a socialist. But yeah, still funny stuff. Like I said, I'm hoping that we get another chapter in the Joe versus Cenk beef at some point, because it is just so goddamn funny to talk about.
Yeah, Joe paternity leave is crazy. The socialist Joe Rogan.
Exactly. And that's why you can't even really call him like a populist, because I mean, a right-wing populist would at least be in favor of paternity leave, given how much they talk about pro-family policy.